All right, hello everyone. So today we're going to be working on a very simple but straightforward kind of tutorial showing you how to draw a modified quadrilateral, basically a three-dimensional shape, to scale. And we're going to talk a little bit about scale and layouts as well. So this is going to kind of show you how to create a technical drawing using Rhino. Very simple one. So start off, and I'm going to use large object inches. That's our default template. Yes, it's a little bit big, but I like having lots of grid space on my grid here. So I'm going to go ahead and start in a top view. Typically with technical drawings, I always like to start with the top view. Usually the first part of a drawing that you've got is the plan of a building or whatever, so you've got that top view. So we're going to start in the top view. Okay, again, each one of these boxes is 1 foot, so each one of these is 1 inch, and we're going to be drawing a shape that is 1'6" by 1 foot. And we've got, let me show you exactly what we're going to be doing here. So this is the drawing that shows all of the measurements we're going to be using, and you can kind of see the overall size and all of the dimensions are called out using architectural ticks. And that's what we're going to be doing. So I'll maximize this. If you want to take a screenshot of it, you can use that as kind of your reference. But I'm going to be going over each one of these dimensions as well. So when we're done, it's going to pretty much look like this. And I'm going to include the dimensions and everything as well, and show you how to set up leaders and that kind of stuff. All right, so let me go ahead and put it to the side here. And pull it over this way. Okay. It's hard to read for you probably, but I can kind of see it. So starting in the top view, I'm going to create the footprint of the size of the object. Yes, I could probably trace the actual overall shape all the way around and just extrude it up and make it easy, but I'm going to actually do this in a way that is more conducive to other more complicated objects as well. So I start off with just the footprint of the object, and I'm going to do that by drawing a polyline. So I'm going to use multiple line segments, and I'm going to start basically wherever I want, but I might want to start with the grid snap on, so I do snap to a specific point. I'll maybe start right there so that I can make sure that when I'm drawing, everything looks right. So if I click on my little grid snapped object, I can start to move in different directions. And I'll leave grid snap on for a little while and then turn it off when it begins to become a problem. But remember, if you've got a Mac, your grid snaps are up at the top. So I drag out to the right, and I'm going to do 1'6" because that's the dimension on the top here. 1'6", quote. Enter. And then you see there's a little hatch mark right there, and then I click to activate it. So now I can go in the different direction. So let me do that again. Start off at this point here, the polyline, and I do my starting point, click, move my cursor to the right, type 1'6", enter. And then click, and then I move my cursor upward, and then I'm going to do the overall footprint this way, which is 1 foot, 1', enter. And then click, drag back this way, and I can just line it up using the projector from the original starting point. Click there, and click there to close it out. Object snaps are all on. Turn off my near. And now that is the overall footprint. And of course, I could have drawn just a rectangle, starting at a point, and then do 1'6" inches, and then 1', and get the same thing. So because these line segments are all connected to one another, I can't quite modify it the way I would normally want to, but they're ready to extrude into three-dimensional form. So I can also switch now to a perspective view, shift and right click to pan it over, and then I can type the word extrude, or I can even cheat and use the little ball. So if I hit the ball, it's going upward, I can do 6 inches. And you can see that that's based on the height we can see in the front view here. Now, my view here is in wireframe, so yeah, it's a little harder to see. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the little down arrow here and go to shaded. And you can see that by default, the extrude command has made it surfaces instead of a solid. So I can either go back and use the extrude command and make sure solid is on and type 6, enter. Or if I wanted to use this, I can always just use another command called cap. And cap is a great tool for creating a solid as long as it is flat. So if you've got 2 sides of a box that are flat, you can cap it. But if there was any kind of curvature to it that wasn't flat, you can't use cap. So cap basically makes it a solid. Okay, so we've got our object here. And what we want to do now is start chipping away at the overall shape of the object. So I'm going to first round this left side here, which we can see in the 3-dimensional form. This side right here is where we want to round it. So I'm going to use a tool called fillet edge. Now there are 2 different types of fillets. There's fillet and fillet edge. We want to make sure we use fillet edge because that's the one for 3-dimensional lines. In future iterations of tutorials, I will be using fillet for curves instead of for 3-dimensional objects. So fillet edge, enter. And before selecting anything, I like to go up to my radius here, either type R for radius, enter, or you can click on radius and change it. So next radius, make it 3, enter. So now you see next radius is 3, so that means if I click here, I will have a 3-inch radius. And I'm getting that dimension by basing it on where the radius or the that arc ends at the top here. We can see that number 3 right there. Also, we know that this is 6 inches tall, and so we've got a 3-inch from here, 3 minus 6, so it's 3, and 3 over. So that means that we've got a 3-inch radius. So we hit enter, and it gives you a little preview. And I could kind of play with it more if I wanted to here, if I was just doing something that was more kind of abstract. But we want to always keep things nice and measured properly. So 3 inches, enter, and that will give you a radiused edge. Okay. The next thing we want to do is bevel the sides. So you can see that this edge is like a straight 45-degree angle, and then there's another little cut on this side here if you look at it from the top view. And you can kind of do the math here as well. Either you can go 3 plus 2.5 plus 6 plus 2.5 minus the 2 foot 6. So this would be 1 foot 2 if you added all that up. 1 foot 2 minus 1 foot 6 is 4 inches. That gives you this 4 inches here. And then you can also see that you've got 1 foot. You've got 8 inches over here. 8 inches minus 1 foot is 4 inches. So we've got a 4-inch by 4-inch bevel edge, which in the vernacular of CAD software, whether it's AutoCAD or Rhino or anything else, it's called a chamfer. So we're going to use a chamfer edge command. And again, we use chamfer edge because the chamfer command is actually something you can use for curves. Chamfer edge is for 3-dimensional objects. So chamfer edge. And then before clicking on anything, we want to do the chamfer distance. By default, it's set at 1. We'll set it to 4. Enter. Okay? And so now I can click on this side, and you can see the number 4 there. That's how I know I'm doing it right. And I can do both of these at the same time. So I can also click on this one, because we've got that notch there that's 4 by 4, and then we've got this notch right here, which is 4 by 4, leaving a 2-inch edge right there. So I'm going to do both of those at the same time. And then you hit enter, gives you that preview again, and I could pull on these little things if I wanted to modify it, which I don't, but that's why it's also showing that, so I can kind of make sure it's all working out. And then I hit enter one more time, and boom, it gives you that chamfered edge. And you can see, if we look at it from this little angle, it's starting to look a lot more like this here. All right, so after you get those two set up, what we're going to do next is put a box in here and take it away. So this is a, I could have drawn this to begin with, and when I extruded it already had that notch taken out of it, but I'm doing this to show you another command. So another simple command that's used all the time, which is Boolean difference. And if you want to figure out what the size of this notch is, of course, you can look at this dimension here, which is 6 inches, this dimension here, which is 6 inches, and then you can see it goes all the way through, so it's another 6 inches tall. So it's a 6 by 6 by 6 inch box. And instead of drawing a square rectangle at 6 by 6 and extruding it up 6 inches, I'm just going to use the box command. So box, enter. And with the box command, it doesn't matter where I start. I can just click here and then start to pull it out. And it says other base or length up here, or if you have a Mac, it'll say it over here. 6, enter, width, length, and then height, 6, enter. So 6, enter, 6, enter, 6, enter gives you a nice box. Now at this point, I'm going to actually turn off my grid snap because I got to find a magical spot on this object, and the grid snap might get in my way. So I'm going to turn off the grid snap down here, Mac up here. And now we're going to use our snaps to grab this object and move it to the proper spot. You can't just use the gumball and just kind of eyeball it. It's not going to work. It's not precise, it just kind of gets locked in. It just moves things around. It doesn't really do it precisely based on point-to-point moving. So what we're going to do now is we're going to use the move tool. So for that, we type, you guessed it, move. So move, enter, click on the box, enter. And now it says point to move from, and this is why we're using the move tool, right? So I can choose a point on the object to move it from, whether I wanted to move it from down here or anywhere else based on where my snap points are. I'm actually going to be moving it from the midpoint. So I'm going to grab it in the middle, because if you look at our shape here, now that we've got the chamfered edges here, you've got 2.5 inches on this side and 2.5 inches on this side, which means this box is directly in the middle of this shape right here. So I'm going to grab it, point to move from, click, and now I've got it. And I'm in ortho, so it's locked in. It doesn't bother me that it's locked in, but if it bothers you, hit shift, and then it's not locked anymore. And then I'm going to look for the midpoint on this object. And nope, not the center. And then as I move along the line, it'll find that midpoint. There it is. It says mid. And then I click, and now I have placed it perfectly on that spot. And if I switch my view here, sometimes it's nice to have the visual style and ghosted, so you can see the box inside there. And you want to make sure that the box is nestled perfectly in there. If I look at it from a front view, the box isn't sticking out. If I look at it from a top view, the box isn't sticking out. It's locked in perfectly in alignment, and that's why we use the move tool. So now, the next tool that I'm going to use is Boolean difference. And where that's located, you can either click and hold on this and go to Boolean difference, which is the second one there, if you don't like typing a bunch of letters and numbers or whatever, or letters, not numbers. But I always just type Boolean difference. Comes up right there. And then the order is super important, okay? So select surfaces or polysurface to subtract from. You click on it, and you have to press enter to continue. So I'm just doing the one object. If I had two objects, I could select another object to select as many objects as I wanted to subtract something out of. So click on the one that you want to subtract from, what do you want to keep, and hit enter. And then what do you want to subtract? And then I've got delete input as yes, so it'll disappear, but you can change that to no. Sometimes you want to keep the input. But click on this, and then we hit enter. And that gives us our modified quadrilateral. All right, so next step that we want to do here with our modified quadrilateral is get rid of any of the curves that we've made. And the way I like to do that is I go up to edit, and then I go to select object and curves. And any curves will be highlighted, and then just hit delete, and that'll get rid of them. So now you're just dealing with the solid object. All right, so the next step is actually to begin to lay out the object. So I'm going to type layout. And this gives you the option to do a page layout any size you want. So if you're doing architecturals, you might do 24 by 36 or 30 by 42, standard architectural sizes. This is where you would set up your sheet size so that you can create details that show objects to scale. And I'm going to actually use 11 by 17, which is probably a little too big, but it makes it a little easier. So I'm going to change this width to 17 and height to 11. And then number of initial details. So we can count. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm going to change this. Oh, I guess I'm going to have to do 4 for now and just add 2. I don't know why it doesn't allow me to change that to 6, but I'll just leave it at 4 for now. Or I can even just, let's put it at, let's just do 0 and add our own details later. So let's do that. Okay. 1 page. Okay. So this is our layout. Now we need to start adding detail views to the layout. So we go under View here, and we go to Layout, Add Detail View. Okay. And then we click, and we drag a little window, and you can see it automatically pulls in our view here. If I double click inside of here, let's go to Properties here. We can see under Properties, if you've got it set up properly here, when you double click inside of here and you're seeing the grid, you can see all of these little options here. You've got scale, layout, model, camera, all of this details here. And if you've got a Mac, let's see, it looks pretty similar. So, and the way you make sure if you get lost in the layout view or something like that, now you can see you've got perspective, top, front, right, and layouts here. You click on layouts, it'll pull it back into this view here. So we're going to kind of be following the same steps here. So under view, that's where you would do it for the Mac version. Okay. So over here, now what we want to do is we want to set up all of the views and use a scale factor. And the scale factor I would use for this because it's a little bit of a larger object, but not like an architectural object. And really, technically, we should be using the metric system for this, but just for the sake of kind of wrapping your head around it, those of you Americans who are used to using the antiquated format of feet and inches, will stick with that. So our scale is based on inches because we did set up our initial file to be inches. Basically what we want is the model at 12 inches should equal the layout at 1 inch. So that is, or I'm sorry, at 3 inches. So 3 inches equals 1 foot, okay? So that is the correct scale for this specific view. So I'm going to double click out of it to make it look like this. And since I've got the scale set up, and it changes it based on the fraction, so 1 equals 4, basically, just a factor of 3. Okay, so I'm going to copy this viewport multiple times. So I can do that just by going Alt, click, drag. And I want 6 of them. So now I'm going to actually scale this down. That's too far scaled down. Because if we remember our original model image, these are smaller than this overall top view. So I can just use a little smaller view here. So let me just pull this up to about right there. And here, I'm going to continue to do this. And I'm going to keep it lined up by just continuing to Alt copy. And then I want 2 of them that are about the same size over here. So I'm going to go Alt, move these ones over here. Whoops. Control Z to undo. Select both of these. Alt, click, move. And then one about the same size as this for the top view that we're going to do an isometric of. So click on Alt again, Alt, click, and actually I want it to be completely lined up perfectly, so I'm just going to do it from this view, because you always want your stuff to be nice and lined up. Oops. Control C. Alt, click, and then I can pull the scale out. Okay. So clicking inside of each one, double click in this one, and we want to set it up with top view, front view, back view, right view, and left views here. So let's go ahead, double click in here, and click down here. Whoops, sorry, page one. Let's change this. Like that. So the way we change these views, double click inside here, and right click if you've got a Mac, and it'll pull up that menu, which is this menu right here. And I go to set view, and I'll go to front. Okay. And it should be keeping it lined up because it's a copy. So we want to make sure that everything is nice and lined up. And I can do that actually by drawing a line just as a check, making sure everything's nice and lined up. This is just good housekeeping for technical drawings. And then also, I'm going to change the view style of this. So under here, if I click on this and I go down to technical, looks good. Double click in here, click on this, and go to technical. Double click here, and I'm going to go to a back view, back, and set this to technical. In this one, I'm going to use a right view. And I'm going to change it to technical. And I mean, you really can, I don't really care. You can use ghosted or X-ray or any of the views that you want, but I like technical. And then I'm going to do a left view. And I'm going to change it to technical. And then this one, I'm going to set the view to isometric. And you can pick which isometric you want to do. I don't want that one. I don't really care which one you do. I'm going to just try to match. I don't know which Southwest. I don't know which isometric I used in the initial one, but it'll probably be the last one I try. Yes, it will. It'll be the last one I try. Set view to isometric, southeast. Okay, and so that gives us our isometric and technical. All right, so now we've got all of our views set up, and next few steps we want to do is we want to dimension these and add text. So I'm going to do some text. Whoops. Just type the word text. And the first one will be top view. And the size, I usually do about 1/4 of an inch, so 0.25. Okay. And then where do I want to put it? I'm going to put it right about there. And then I'm going to grab this text, I'm going to Alt and just drag it down, keep it all nice and lined up. Alt again, lined up. So shift click to this one, Alt, and bring these two over here. See how nice and lined up everything is? And then select this one, Alt, and drag it up here. And if I double click on it, oh, it's trying to go to the wrong. All right, I don't know. Here we go. So I got funky because I got two screens going. One's 4K, one's 2K, you know, that kind of thing. So let me just fix this. All right. That's the way it should look when you pop it up. When you double click it, it goes to edit, and I can go front, view, and typically actually we cap lock things when we're doing technical drawings. Just makes things, and you can see it also comes up in the properties over here. So if I just click on this, it'll come up in the properties. All right. Okay, so these boxes you don't have to worry too much about because if you look at them under properties, I'm just making sure that this is still by default. See, it says print with, no print. So that means that the box itself will not print. Okay, last thing we want to do is put the dimensions on. So I'm not going to dimension the isometric, I'm just going to dimension these drawings. Typically when we do technical drawings, we provide the isometric so that the manufacturer or user can see the three-dimensional object, but you would build off of the broken out orthographic views here. So let's go up to our dimensions. So type in dim for dimension, and there's a couple of different dimensions. There's dim aligned and just dim, and I'm going to just use dim for now. And I'm going to start off here, click from here to here, and drag it out. And then what I want to do is actually change the dimension style. And the way I do that is go up into properties, or I believe it's preferences on the Mac, but yeah, so you'll go out here, and then there are all of these different options, and one of which is annotation style. Inch, decimal, inch fractional is the one I want, or foot inch architectural. This one I believe is the right one. Okay, so let's do that and hit OK. And let's do the dimension again and see what happens. Yeah, okay. So that's all set. Now what we want to do is you can select the height, and I can change that height to whatever I want it to be. Let's see how 0.25 looks. Okay, that looks pretty good. And now let's see if it's sticky. What that means is if I use it again, will it work the same way? No. So we do need to go back up into our properties here. Go to annotation, and where is it? Ah, there we go. Model, space, scale, font, height, 0.25. Apply. Okay. So now when I do it, it should all come up that way. Yeah. And you can see you might need to change and move things around a little bit just to make it fit. If I select those and move it up. And I can kind of change the size of the viewport to make it work better. You know, actually what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say, okay, we'll do smaller font sizes. All right. I'll just leave it small, which if you're printing out on 11 by 17, it'll be relatively large anyway, but I just don't want to deal with all of the nonsense. So, okay, so dim, enter. I just undid it, so it should come up. Yeah, so 1'6", and then we go like this. From here to here, it's the 3 inches. And I'm using the snaps, right? So you got to make sure your snaps are on. 2.5 inches, 6 inches. And I'm snapping it back to the point to keep it all lined up. And there we go. And then this one as well. So I'm just matching what I've already got down there. And then I'm going to come over here. And I need just these two on this one. And you don't repeat dimensions, you know, because if you've got the dimension up here, you shouldn't really need to repeat it again, because that's, you know, when we get markups and changes and stuff, it does sometimes lead you to change a dimension up here and not down here, and then things are contradictory. So we try to only repeat the dimensions that are necessary to repeat if they are necessary. So here, I'm going from here to here, 5.5 inches, just to give another clue as to where that notch is. Back over here. And another 2.5 inch, which you don't even need to do, but we're doing it. And then I also missed this dimension here, which is the important part for the radius. Okay, and over here, 6 inches, 2 inches, 6 inches. All right. Perfect. So that's basically what we're looking for the final version. Dimensioned, it'll be to scale. If I were to print this on an 11 by 17 sheet of paper, it would scale out correctly. Okay, so now let's just make sure it's nice and lined up. And a lot of times, yeah, it's just talking about the history, whatever. It doesn't matter because we're not going back, we're not undoing anything. We're going to keep it the way it is. So, trying to get the layout a little bit better here. Use the available space. And sometimes it's hard to tell when you've got these showing. So let's go ahead and file. Or let's see, save as, boom. PDF to desktop. Entitle it block. Title it wood block. And as we export as a PDF, you'll get these options here. Resolution, size, landscape, output, we leave it at vector. And the nice thing about this also is if I wanted to bring this into like Illustrator, I could still play with the vectors in Illustrator and stuff. So one page, the layout, all of this. So there's a lot of options in here for exporting as a PDF. And then we go OK. Autosave, okay, it's all good. Let's look at our PDF, see how the finished project looks. Awesome. So that's all there is to it. I think that's a nice layout. Everything is nice and lined up, and that's technical drawing using Rhino. Thank you all very much.